Live Social.
Amici di Live Social, buonasera, ben ritrovati qui su Radio Lombardia. Questa sera siamo un po' in lingua. Qua con noi c'è il dottor Massimo Mancini. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, Massimo, we're talking tonight about a particular subject.
Yes, it's a very difficult subject because most people, especially Italian, they get very uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, that's true. In Italy is strongest this, how we can call it, the fact that
it's a very sensitive subject.
Very
I would say,
sensitive, okay.
Because we're going to talk about adolescence and sexuality.
Okay, and that's our topic tonight, okay?
Right.
So why it is so sensitive?
Well, first of all, we have because when we talk about sexuality, we are obviously a Christian country, and there is a lot of religious value and moral
That's true.
that tend to emphasize all this subject. And the other thing that is very difficult to, I guess, face is the fact that in Italy there are not like sexual classes that will teach to adolescents what is mean to be sexual and others sexuality could be expressed or anything like that.
You're talking about school instruction, right?
Also school instruction in most countries all over the world, so they have like a sexual class, educational and sexual class, where they teach what is sexuality, how the, and it's a way to kind of help to release the stress from parents. They're usually the one that's supposed to give all this information.
And also parents tend not to talk about this topic,
Well,
right?
of course, that's a big issue because usually parents get very, I would say, sensitive about this subject because usually those subjects tend to trigger some sort of embarrassment, sense of guilty, inadequacy to face those situations that could be related to their childhood when the parents were adolescents. And because of this situation, most of the time they are connected also with a traumatic example or
That's
experience
true.
in life.
Yeah.
And obviously the parents tend to be very guarded about this subject, and most of the time they don't feel comfortable to talk about this subject. And that's why it's I will say it's recommended for them or to delegate to somebody else. It could be like educators or professional to teach those children or adolescents what is sexuality and is the proper way to express that, or eventually to train themselves how to do that.
But that's because in this period of life, adolescency, right?
Adolescence,
is really how we can say is really important to talk about this subject, right?
Well, yes, because it's something that usually adults they don't talk about because they take for granted because they know or they don't. But it's also very embarrassing from a different point of view, also to say I don't know about it. And for example, for guys, it's even more complicated because we all grew up thinking, okay, I know everything, but I don't. Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Exactly. And the girls, they feel girls tend to speak a little bit more about that, and that's another biggest problem that usually comes out pretty soon when the girls are around 13, 12, and something, and that age, that they feel like so uncomfortable. Because they start some sort of a competition with friends and peer.
Exactly.
How to give up? Not how to give up. How to give for free? I would say.
Yeah.
And like to the first time of the sexual intercourse or something, because they feel like so much pressure from their peer.
Men usually live sexuality almost like competition. You say right?
Right. Yes.
And that's why maybe they don't talk about it.
Well,
so
yes,
much.
especially in Italy. I mean, even myself, I grew up thinking I don't know much about that, and I should ask somebody. And I would say I was smart enough to ask to adults so that I trusted, and they were competent enough or calm enough to explain to me like in a proper way, how the child be born and this kind of thing. But there was no such education in terms of how to deal with this strong emotional, physical reaction of your body, because that's a very delicate phase, because the body of adolescents, we're talking about the age between, I would say, 12 and 17 years old.
Okay.
It's struggling all the time between pulsions, emotions, and so usually the physical maturity is quite faster versus the emotional and the psychological maturity.
Okay.
And the body, especially for girls, is being perceived like some sort of a tools to get attention from others. And so, for that reason, in some situation, the girls that don't want to feel like left out, or they want to be part of the group at that age, they are, I would say, willing to do kind of to give some sort of favors to guys and stuff, just because they don't feel like they don't know worth enough, or they feel like they are not good enough. Especially those girls that they don't have a good perception about themselves.
Usually, at least sometimes, they can ask when is the right moment to start to exploring sexuality.
Exactly. I would say that this is more a kind of a question that girls will ask versus guys.
Maybe Ben
because the guys pretend, oh, I know everything, I'm cool, this kind of stuff. Oh, I did this, I did that, and it's I would say, I don't want to use the expression, but it's a lot of fake information that we put out there, because that's nothing very important, especially for guys. It's the reputation.
Yeah, that's true.
Reputation for guys and for girls. To have a good reputation, to be a good girl or bad girl, it's very dangerous at that age. And that's why most of the time we have this very traumatic news that we hear on
it's
TV
happening
all the
really
time. All the time that the girls, they've been I would say they've been taking pictures of when they were drunk or they were half naked, and they were put online and embarrassed to everybody.
Social media also put this remarkable situation.
Absolutely, and the problem is that usually they feel so much pressure from the media, from the social environment. And sometimes in extreme situation they can kill themselves because they cannot take it so much responsibility of being a bad girl or good girl or whatever.
That's true.
And this could be a very difficult subject. That's why.
The peers' opinion is also important, right?
It's very important because we never stop thinking about the fact that this age is very delicate age, because basically what's going on with adolescents, they are looking for some sort of identity. They don't know who they really are, because in that age
they're trying to discover.
Yeah, exactly. They try to discover themselves, and it's like when you wear like a special suit or special costume, like a carnival costume, let's say.
Okay.
And you wear a costume, and then you go around in the society with your friends. So how do I look like? Ask the question: do I look good? Do I look bad? And this kind of a carnival costume, it's like identity. And this age is being characterized by the fact that usually we try different clothes, different carnival clothes, until we find the one that fits us better. That we look at the eyes of a peer and friends and something. How do I look like? If you get a good feedback from them, okay, you may say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try this kind of a suit. I feel good, like dress like a sheriff or like a Zorro, like all time you used to. Yeah. And you start to play the role of being like the sheriff of the situation, or just being or the princess if you're a girl or something. And this kind of phase is being characterized by those roles, and it's a very delicate thing, because it's like exploration phase. And so, and most of the time, that's why peer, it's so important, the pressure that we get from peer, because the negative influence from peer could make you feel really uncomfortable, unwanted, and not loved or not cared enough.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very difficult. The other thing that is very important to talk about is the fact that most of the time we never stop asking what are the referral model for adolescents when we talk about sexuality. Where do you get information?
Yeah, you talk about this, you mentioned it before. You said they have fake information most of the time, but where they take it?
Well, obviously now that we are in a social, in a media society, so obviously adolescents, where do you think you get information? From internet.
If they don't know something,
they don't know anything, they just go online and check for information. And the worst part is that usually most of this information are coming from the porn industry.
Mm-hmm.
They have they present how to, I would say, make love, or to be close physically with somebody that you want. But most
This
of the time,
presents a wrong image of sexuality. No?
of course, because they're actor actress, they they
course.
pretend all the time.
Mhm.
They pretend the performance. They pretend how we're supposed to be or how we're supposed to do it. But that's not reality. Because in the real world, people don't act like that.
Of course.
But can you imagine a 16 or 17-year-old boy asking to his girlfriend, "Oh, we should do this position because we watch it on TV"? Are you crazy?
that's it looked like something weird, but they actually act like this.
In fact, that's the higher risk of this situation,
Mhm.
because if this education is not being filtered by
Mhm.
adults, they teach them that it's not the reality.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just
true.
a pretending thing. And obviously, when you are intimate with someone, you don't feel like doing this kind of weird stuff that you watch on TV or on internet,
Of
or
course.
on this kind of porno thing.
But they need to learn that is
Yeah,
not
exactly.
like this.
If they don't get those information from
Mhm.
parents or from a responsible adult,
Mhm.
where do you get information? From a teenager like them.
Mm.
And what kind of reliable information they can get from there?
Yeah, that's true. Ok Massimo, it was a pleasure having you here.
It was a pleasure to be here again.
Allora, io vi lascio i suoi contatti a partire dal sito drmassimo.com, lo trovate anche su YouTube, drmassimo.mancini, psicologo della famiglia della rabbia, invece la sua pagina Facebook, potete contattarlo all'indirizzo mail dr.massimo_mft@yahoo.com.
Live, social.